I stood there, still holding a pipe wrench, my hands grimy from the repair, asking my mother what time I should show up on Saturday. I figured I'd get there early, help set up chairs, do what I always did. I was expecting her to say something like, "Oh, early, can you help with the chairs, or the caterers will be here at 3. Something normal. Instead, my mother, Eleanor, slowly put down her phone. Her face did this thing. This slow, frozen half-smile that always meant bad news was coming. The party, she said, was actually pretty small. Just immediate family. Keeping it manageable. I just stared at her. Immediate family? I'm her son. And I'd literally just overheard her talking about Uncle Gary, my father's second cousin from 3 states away, a man who shows up to family events maybe once every 4 years. He was invited? She fumbled for words, talking about space limitations, caterer numbers, the seating chart being done. I could still smell the sewer gas from the cracked P-trap I'd just replaced. I was in my work clothes, feeling the grime under my fingernails, watching my own mother explain why I wasn't invited to my father, Richard's, retirement party. The party happening in 4 days. In the house I'd just spent 2.5 hours fixing for free, just like I'd done for the last 11 years. She said it wasn't personal. Said they'd do something with me separately, maybe dinner the following week. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just nodded, packed up my tools in complete silence, and walked out to my truck. She followed me, still making excuses, saying I was being dramatic, asking why I was upset, because it was just a party. I got in my truck, started the engine, and drove away without a word. What she didn't know, what nobody knew, was that 3 months earlier, I'd booked a week-long trip to Costa Rica as my father's retirement gift. A beautiful resort on the Pacific coast. Ocean view room, upgraded to premium because I wanted it to be special. All-inclusive meals, airport transfers, the whole package. I'd been saving for over a year. Every extra job, every side project, every bit of weekend overtime went into that Costa Rica fund. $2,300 total. My business partner, Leo, had already agreed to cover my jobs while I was gone. I was going to surprise Dad at the party, hand him the tickets, tell him we were leaving the following month, just father and son. A trip to celebrate his 35 years of hard work. I'd even bought a cheesy Hawaiian shirt to wear when I presented them. Had the whole moment planned in my head. But I wasn't invited to the party. I sat in my apartment that night, staring at the resort confirmation on my laptop. $2,300 already paid. Non-refundable deposit. A gift for a man who apparently didn't need me at his big celebration. The thing that really got to me wasn't the money. It was what I figured out somewhere around midnight, still sitting there in the dark. They didn't forget to invite me. They decided not to. There's a difference. What they did was deliberate. I was an afterthought. Someone they specifically chose to exclude, while still expecting me to fix their plumbing 4 days before the party. And somewhere deep down, I knew what this was about. They didn't want me there. Not with my work clothes, not with the faint scent of honest labor clinging to me. Not with, as I once overheard my sister Brooke sneer, grease under my nails. My best friend, Noah, called around 9 that night. Noah and I have been tight since 7th grade. He's an electrician now, runs his own crew, and has the kind of dry humor that gets us both in trouble at exactly the wrong moments. Also the kind of friend who showed up with his truck when my ex moved out, no questions asked. I told him what happened. Noah was quiet for a few seconds. Then he asked if the reservation was locked to my dad's name, or if I could change it. I pulled up the booking confirmation. Premium room for 2 guests. Names could be changed up to 48 hours before arrival for a $25 administrative fee. Noah goes, "Dude, we're going to Costa Rica. Your dad can celebrate his retirement by finding out what an actual plumber charges." I laughed for the first time in hours. Then I changed the reservation. Ethan Cross and Zachary Webb, departing Saturday at 6 a.m. The exact same day as my father's retirement party. The alarm went off at 4 in the morning on Saturday. Noah picked me up at 4:45 in his truck. Both of us running on black coffee and spite. By the time my family would be gathering at my parents' house for pastries and brunch, we were 30,000 feet in the air, watching the sunrise through the airplane window. Noah ordered a ginger ale and started reading a fishing magazine. I stared at the clouds and honestly just felt relieved. My phone was on Do Not Disturb. Only 3 names could break through: Noah, my business partner Leo, and Mrs. Brown, my elderly neighbor who watched my apartment when I traveled. My family was not on the favorites list. Hadn't been for years. The only calls I ever got from them were requests to fix something or complaints about something I hadn't fixed fast enough. At some point, I'd stopped adding them to favorites and never changed it back. We landed in Costa Rica around noon local time. The humidity hit us the second we stepped off the plane, but it felt good. The resort shuttle was waiting at the airport. Driver holding a sign with our names, like we were somebody important. The resort was incredible. Palm trees lining every pathway, infinity pool that seemed to spill directly into the Pacific Ocean. Our room had a balcony that belonged on a postcard, with 2 chairs facing the water and nothing but blue horizon as far as you could see. I stood there for a solid 5 minutes, just taking it in. First time in a long time where nobody was asking me for anything. Noah came out onto the balcony with the all-inclusive menu and said we were eating shrimp for every meal since it was included. We changed into swim trunks and hit the beach with fruit smoothies that tasted like vacation in a glass. Meanwhile, back home, the party was apparently going great until it wasn't. I got the full story later from Frank, a plumber I knew professionally who ended up getting the emergency call. Frank's been in the business almost as long as me, runs a crew on the north side of the city, and has zero reason to make stuff up. About 2 hours into the party, someone flushed the upstairs toilet. The same bathroom I'd fixed 4 days earlier. What my mother hadn't mentioned when she asked for the repair. She'd been flushing flushable wipes down that toilet for months. A package per week. Every plumber knows these things don't actually break down. They just accumulate until something catastrophic happens. The wipes had been building up in the main sewer line for weeks, maybe months, creating a dam just waiting for the worst possible moment. The toilet erupted. Not a slow rise, Frank said. A sickening surge. Brown-tinted water poured over the rim onto the tile floor, carrying everything that had been sitting in the bowl. Within minutes, it was seeping through the subfloor and dripping through the dining room ceiling below. Dripping onto the dessert table, onto guests' plates, onto my father's retirement cake. My mother's first instinct was to call me. The calls went straight to voicemail. My father tried. Voicemail. Brooke tried from her cell. My brother Mason tried from his. Even Chloe, Mason's wife, tried. All voicemail. They finally gave up and called an actual plumbing company on a Saturday, Memorial Day weekend, when every plumber in the region was either at a barbecue or charging holiday emergency rates. The dispatch fee alone was $350. Frank said when he pulled into the driveway, my mother was standing on the front porch, practically shaking, going off about where her son was and why he'd sent a stranger. He told her he had no idea who her son was, and he was just there to fix the plumbing. He assessed the situation. Mainline blockage requiring a powered snake and possibly hydrojetting, water damage to ceiling and carpet. The total bill for Saturday alone was $875. And he told them the main line would need follow-up work, probably another $2,000. Frank said my mother kept saying she shouldn't have to pay because her son was a plumber. Frank told her that her son wasn't there, and the sewage wasn't going to wait for a family discount. The party ended around 4 that afternoon. Guests made awkward excuses and left early. My father spent the rest of his retirement celebration running a shop vac while my mother cycled between fury and tears. 35 years at the same company, and his big day ended with the smell of raw sewage and an unexpected 4-figure bill. I didn't know any of this was happening. I was 3,000 miles away, lying in a beach chair watching the sunset. Noah was next to me, going on about whether sand crabs were technically crabs or some other kind of creature. That night, Noah posted a photo to Instagram. The two of us on the beach, smoothies in hand, sunset blazing behind us. He captioned it, "When you're not invited to the party, you become the party. Costa Rica with my boy Ethan Cross." Then he tagged my entire family. Every single one of them. I didn't find out about the tag until the next morning when I finally checked my phone and found the notification apocalypse waiting for me. 23 missed calls, 51 text messages, 3 voicemails that I could tell from the preview weren't going to be pleasant listening experiences. The texts told the story, through increasingly angry messages from my mother. Ethan, where are you? Call me immediately, then, this is an emergency. Why aren't you answering, then, your father's party is ruined. There's sewage everywhere and you can't be bothered to pick up the phone, then, several hours later, your friend posted that you're in Costa Rica. You're on vacation while we're dealing with this, and finally, at 2 a.m, I can't believe I raised someone so selfish. From my father, Richard, it was simple, "Son, please call home." That one hit different than my mother's unhinged messages. Always did. From Mason, "Are you kidding me right now? You're in Costa Rica while Mom and Dad's house is flooding. What is wrong with you?" From Brooke, a 5-paragraph essay about how selfish I was, how I'd abandoned the family during their worst crisis, how Dad's retirement was completely ruined because I couldn't be bothered to answer my phone. She concluded by saying she was genuinely worried about my mental state and maybe I should talk to someone. I showed Noah the messages over breakfast. He read through them slowly, took a long sip of coffee. He goes, "So, I guess they found out what a plumber costs." We spent the next 6 days living our best lives. Snorkeling in crystal clear water. Fresh seafood at beachside restaurants. Sunsets every evening that looked like someone had cranked up the color saturation on the sky. I kept my phone on DND the entire time. The notifications piled up, dozens of them, judging by the badge on the home screen. I didn't read any of them. Whatever fire was burning back home, I wasn't going to be the one to put it out. The flight home landed Sunday evening. 8 days of sun and relaxation, and I genuinely felt like a different person. Clear-headed in a way I hadn't been in a long time. That lasted about 45 minutes. I pulled into my apartment complex around 9 and found a welcoming committee in the parking lot. All 5 of them. Mom, Dad, Brooke, Mason, and Mason's wife, Chloe. They were arranged around their cars like they'd been running surveillance for hours. Knowing my family, they probably had been. My mother spotted my truck first and started speedwalking toward me before I even got the door open. Her face was a mix of fury and relief that would have been almost funny if I'd been in a laughing mood. Where had I been? Why didn't I answer? Did I have any idea what I'd put them through? I grabbed my duffel bag and walked past her toward my building without a word. 10. Relaxed. Completely unbothered. My father cut me off at the entrance. His voice had that disappointed tone. He said we needed to talk about what happened, about the party, about me posting vacation photos while they dealt with the disaster. Said he didn't raise me to be this selfish. I stopped and turned to face all of them. Asked what disaster he meant. The plumbing emergency, the ruined party, the thousands in damages, the fact that I'd ignored their calls for 8 days. I nodded. Then I told him the Costa Rica trip was supposed to be his retirement gift. I was going to surprise him at the party, hand him the tickets in front of everyone. A father-son trip. Nobody said anything. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Mason actually took a step backward. Even Chloe, who never showed emotion about anything, looked uncomfortable. But I wasn't invited, I said. So I took Noah instead. The silence lasted long enough to hear traffic on the street behind us. My mother started sputtering about the seating chart, the catering numbers, how they didn't think I'd mind. I held up my hand. 11 years. I've fixed your plumbing for free for 11 years. Every leak, every clog, every broken fixture. For days before this party, I was in your bathroom replacing parts one paid for. And then I found out I wasn't invited. Mason stepped forward, puffing his chest. That stopped working when we were teenagers. He said none of that was an excuse for ignoring the phone calls when they needed me. I asked when the last time was that any of them called me for something other than free labor. No answer. I laid it out. From now on, you can call my business line during normal hours. I'll schedule you like any customer. Charge you like any customer. Emergency rate is $250 just to show up. Weekends are time and a half. My mother looked like I'd slapped her. She asked if I was really going to charge my own family. I said I was done being their unpaid employee. I walked to my apartment door, unlocked it, and turned back. I told them they could stay in the parking lot as long as they wanted, but if anyone knocked on my door, I'd call the police. Then I went inside, threw the deadbolt, and exhaled. Through the window, I watched them argue with each other for another 30 minutes before finally leaving. I took a long shower and went to bed. I figured that would be the end of it. They'd be angry for a while. We'd avoid each other during holidays, and eventually, things would settle into some kind of distant truce. That's how these things usually work, right? I was wrong. What happened next came in stages. Each stage was worse than the last. Each stage made it clearer they weren't going to stop until I either caved or made them stop. It started with the phone calls and the lies. My business partner, Leo, had handled things well while I was gone. Leo's been with me for 6 years, started as an apprentice, and worked his way up to co-running the operation. Good plumber, better person. He told me my mother had called the business line 9 times while I was in Costa Rica. Every single time, she demanded he personally go to their house and fix the problem as a family favor. She said he worked for her son, so he should help the family. Leo politely explained that the family favor rate was the same as the regular rate and quoted her the numbers. She hung up every single time. Leo said by call 7, he was timing how fast she slammed the phone. The record was 3 seconds. Frank ended up doing the mainline repair. Charged them $3,200 total when you added up the emergency visit, the follow-up hydrojetting, and the parts. Reasonable for the scope of work. My mother told everyone who would listen that Frank had ripped them off, that her own son would have done it for free if he wasn't being vindictive. That Frank had probably conspired with me to overcharge them as some kind of coordinated revenge scheme. Word travels fast in the trades community. We all know each other. We refer jobs back and forth. Frank told me about my mother's accusations over lunch at a place we both liked near the supply house. He was mostly laughing, but there was an edge to his voice. Being accused of scamming customers isn't great for anyone's reputation. He asked what was going on with my family. I gave him the abbreviated version. He nodded and said he'd never take another call from that address. The family didn't let up. They tried different angles. My sister Brooke showed up at a job site 2 weeks after I got back. I was doing a bathroom renovation for a longtime client named Patricia, replacing the shower valve and updating the fixtures. When Brooke walked through the front door like she owned the place, I was literally inside the wall cavity, headlamp on, torch in my hand, soldering a copper fitting. She tracked my location from the business social media. Patricia came into the hallway to see who'd arrived. Brooke breezed past her without even acknowledging she existed. Brooke announced that we needed to talk. Said this had gone on long enough. Said Mom and Dad were devastated. Said Dad hadn't been the same since the party, that he barely slept anymore, that he'd lost weight. Said I was tearing the family apart over what? A party invitation. I told her I was in the middle of a job with Live Flame and she needed to leave right now. She didn't leave. Said I was being childish. Said the silent treatment was immature. Said I needed to apologize and put this whole thing behind us so we could be a family again. Said everyone was waiting for me to come to my senses. I turned off the torch, set it down carefully on the edge of the tub, and asked if she'd apologized to me yet. For not inviting me. For planning an entire party around the idea that I didn't need to be there. For 11 years of expecting me to work for free while she invoiced clients for event planning. She said that wasn't the same thing. I asked how. She couldn't answer, just stood there with her mouth open for a few seconds before recovering and saying I was twisting everything around, making myself the victim when I was the one who'd abandoned them. Patricia, who'd been watching from the hallway with her arms crossed, finally spoke up, asked Brooke if she worked for me. Brooke said, "No, I'm his sister." Patricia said, "Well, he's charging me by the hour for my time. My shower doesn't work, and maybe your sister could come back when he wasn't standing inside her wall with a welding torch." Brooke left, but not before turning at the door to tell me I was making a huge mistake, and I'd regret this for the rest of my life. Patricia waited until she heard Brooke's car pull away, then came back to the bathroom doorway, asked what that was all about. I gave her the 30-second version while I relit the torch and finished soldering the valve. She was quiet for a moment, then said her own family hadn't spoken to her in nearly a decade, and it was the most peaceful decade of her life. Said some families are more trouble than they're worth. She became one of my favorite clients after that. Referred me to 4 friends over the next few months. Mason tried the nostalgia play about a week later. Showed up at my apartment with a pizza and a 6-pack of the fancy root drink we'd liked as kids. He made his pitch. Everyone made mistakes. Maybe they should have invited me, but I was overreacting, and we needed to move forward like adults. Said he missed his brother. I let him talk for 5 minutes. Then I asked when the last time was that I'd asked him for free accounting work. He looked confused. I spelled it out. He was a CPA with his own practice, 6 employees. In 11 years, he'd never once offered to do my business taxes for free. Never helped with quarterly filings or payroll setup. He said that was different. I opened the front door and told him to leave. He sputtered about being reasonable, about making peace. I told him he had 30 seconds before I called the police. He left at 28, still muttering about how unreasonable I was. The lies started spreading after Mason's visit. I heard through mutual acquaintances that my family was telling people I'd stolen money from them, that I'd sabotaged their plumbing intentionally, that I was on drugs or having a breakdown. Noah heard the drug rumor from his cousin, who'd heard it at my mother's gym. The story was that I'd become addicted to painkillers and that's why my behavior changed. Complete garbage, but people were believing it. Noah was furious. Said we needed to document everything. He'd been through a nasty divorce and learned about protecting yourself when people are trying to destroy your reputation. He became my unofficial advisor on building a paper trail. 3 weeks after Mason's visit, the first sign that things had gotten way out of hand came through my business. A property management company I'd worked with for 4 years suddenly canceled a standing maintenance contract, 12 units across 3 buildings. Consistent monthly work I'd been counting on. The manager, Michael, seemed uncomfortable delivering the news. Said his bosses had heard some things about my reliability, about me abandoning family during emergencies, about me being vindictive and possibly unstable. Someone had been talking loudly to people who mattered to my livelihood. I did some digging. My mother had been running a one-woman defamation campaign. She told her church group I'd abandoned my elderly parents during a medical crisis. Told the women at her gym I'd stolen money from my parents' savings. Told the neighbors that success had gone to my head. And through some connection I never fully traced, she'd gotten word to people in my professional network. Leo noticed the pattern. He was tracking our bookings, and the numbers were down almost 20%. When I told him what I'd found, he said it was tortious interference, a legal term for deliberately sabotaging someone's professional life. I said she was also my mother. He said those two things could both be true. The in-person harassment escalated, too. My father showed up at a residential job site one morning and stood in the driveway for over an hour, arms crossed, refusing to leave until I came out. The homeowner, Diane, finally threatened to call the police. He left, but she asked me to finish the job quickly and paid without the usual friendly conversation. My mother convinced a neighbor to let her into my apartment building by claiming she was visiting for my birthday. My birthday is in March. This was August. She knocked on my door for 45 minutes, alternating between tearful pleas and angry accusations. I didn't open the door, yelled that I was calling the police. She left when she heard sirens, though they were responding to something else. The breaking point came on a Thursday morning in early September. I was meeting with a potential new commercial client, Daniel. He was opening a farm-to-table restaurant downtown and needed the kitchen plumbing evaluated before his opening. This was the kind of job I'd been working toward for years. Serious money. Daniel seemed like a good guy. We were in the middle of the walkthrough, him asking smart questions about water pressure, drainage capacity, whether his grease interceptor was sized for the volume he was planning. I was explaining the options, feeling good about this one, already running the numbers in my head. Then my brother Mason walked through the front door. He'd followed me there. Must have been sitting in his car around the corner, waiting for me to show up at my next appointment like some kind of stalker. He didn't even acknowledge Daniel standing there. Just started talking loudly about family business like we were in our parents' kitchen instead of someone else's future restaurant. About how I was abandoning our parents. About how Dad's health was suffering because of the stress. About how everyone was worried about me. Daniel looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. The easy vibe we'd been building was gone. I told Mason to leave, that this was a business meeting with a client. He didn't. He got louder. Said I couldn't keep running from this. Said I needed to stop being so selfish and come home and apologize like a man. Daniel took a visible step backward. I could see him mentally recalculating whether he wanted to work with someone who had this kind of drama following him around. Mason moved closer until he was right in my face. He grabbed my arm and tried to physically pull me toward the door. Said we were going to talk outside like men whether I liked it or not. I yanked my arm free. Told him flat out that if he touched me again, I'd put him on the ground. Daniel cleared his throat and said he thought we should reschedule. Said he'd call me when things settled down. He never called. I lost a $15,000 job because my brother couldn't accept being told no. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the documentation Noah had helped me build. Call logs, screenshots, dates, and witnesses. A paper trail stretching back weeks. This wasn't going to stop on its own. They weren't going to get tired. They were going to keep pushing until they either broke me down or destroyed my business completely. So, I called a lawyer. The lawyer's name was Sarah. Civil litigation. Noah knew her from his divorce. Said she doesn't mess around. I brought everything. Screenshots of texts and social media posts, call logs, lost contracts with dates and dollar amounts, statements from Leo and Patricia documenting what they'd witnessed. She reviewed it, taking notes. When she finished, she asked what outcome I wanted. I said I wanted them to stop. I wanted my life back. She said, here's what we do. First, a formal cease and desist letter. Put them on notice that what they're doing has legal consequences. Document that they've been warned. Most people back off when they see letterhead from a law firm. My family was not most people. The cease and desist went out on a Tuesday. By Thursday, my mother had posted on Facebook calling me an addict who'd abandoned his elderly parents. She tagged extended family, tagged church friends, made it public, like she was daring me to do something about it. Sarah said, "Okay, now we escalate." She filed for a temporary restraining order based on the harassment, the job site ambushes, the apartment stalking, the pattern of showing up uninvited. The documented Facebook post helped. The order got granted. Process server caught all 4 of them. 2 days later, my father showed up at my apartment anyway. Knocked on my door for 20 minutes. I didn't open it. Called the non-emergency police line. Officers came out, documented the violation, told him he needed to leave, and that violating the order again could mean arrest. That incident became important later. Sarah didn't file a full defamation lawsuit. She explained that defamation cases are expensive, slow, and hard to win, even when you're clearly right. What she did instead was smarter. She sent their lawyer a letter laying out everything we had documented. The letter made clear that if this went to court, we'd pursue the full damages plus legal fees. But it also offered an alternative, mediation. Their lawyer called back within a week. They wanted to talk. The mediation was at a neutral office downtown, just a conference room with a mediator. Both lawyers and the parties involved. Leo came as a witness. It was the first time I'd been in the same room with all of them since the parking lot confrontation. My parents looked tired. Mason sat with his arms crossed. Brooke wouldn't make eye contact. Their lawyer started with the usual stuff about emotions running high and finding a path forward. Sarah cut through it. Said we weren't there to fix relationships. We were there to agree on terms that would make this stop. The terms, they stay away from me. 500 feet from my residence, my business, any job site. No contact, direct or indirect. Written retraction sent to everyone they'd lied to. And reimbursement of $14,000 in documented business losses. They pushed back. Said the money was too much. Said the retractions were humiliating. Said they shouldn't have to admit they'd done anything wrong. Sarah laid out the alternative. We had my father's restraining order violation documented. We had the Facebook posts where my mother called me a drug addict, time-stamped after the cease and desist. We had client statements, lost contracts, a clear paper trail. If we went to court, we'd ask for more than $14,000. And it would all be public record. The mediator suggested a break. When we came back, their lawyer said his clients would agree to the terms. No trial, no courtroom drama, just paperwork and a check. The retraction letters went out the following week. My mother had to send them herself, to her church group, her gym, everyone she'd told those lies to. The letters stated clearly that her claims about me stealing money, sabotaging plumbing, and using drugs were false. The check cleared 2 weeks later, $14,000. I heard through Uncle Gary they had to dip into savings to cover it. He said he thought I'd handled things the right way. The restraining order stayed in place. A judge made it permanent at a routine hearing where nobody contested anything. Walking out of that hearing, I didn't feel like I'd won some big victory. Didn't feel vindicated. Just felt done. The months that followed were quiet in the best possible way. No ambushes at job sites. No lies spreading through my professional network. No one showing up at my apartment to pound on the door. No more treating me like I owed them free labor for the rest of my life. I rebuilt what I could. Some clients came back once word got around about what really happened. The retraction letters helped. Michael from the property management company called personally to apologize and asked if I'd consider taking them back. I said I would, at my standard rates. He said that was more than fair. Patricia referred me to 4 friends, all of whom became regulars. Turned out she knew a lot of people who appreciated good work and paid on time. Frank started sending overflow jobs my way when his schedule got packed. We'd grab lunch sometimes and trade war stories about difficult clients. Leo and I hired an apprentice named Jordan, fresh out of trade school. I heard through the grapevine that my parents' social circle had shrunk significantly after the retraction letters went out. Turns out people don't like finding out they've been lied to. Mason's marriage was in serious trouble. Chloe, who'd barely spoken 12 words to me over the years, had apparently found plenty of words once she learned the full story. Brooke moved to another state for a job opportunity, though the timing suggested she was running from the local embarrassment as much as toward anything new. I didn't reach out, didn't feel the pull of obligation that had driven my decisions for so many years. My life now is actually mine. I run a business with people I respect. I have friends who actually want to be around me, not just use me. And that's more than enough for me. Did it feel like a victory? Not really. More like a quiet peace. The kind you find after a long, drawn-out battle you never wanted to fight. I'd built my business, I'd earned my life, and for the first time in a long time, it felt truly mine. So, I guess the question is, when is enough truly enough?